The understanding now is the fundamental nature of emotions in all human interactions. Emotions tell us what is meaningful, what is important. They're also the integration of the mind and the body, because emotions, by definition, psychobiological, the body's reaction, etc. Emotions are also at the heart of how we perceive something as being meaningful. Something is meaningful because an emotional response within us marks that. The body is marking that. So that being the case, emotional development is even earlier than cognitive and intellectual development. This essentially is the way that our bodies react to stressors in the environment. Now, there are also cognitive pieces to these emotions, but essentially we're looking at a fundamental reaction of the brain, mind, body to changes in the environment, to changes that are either stressful or non-stressful. That being the case, emotions can either be positive or negative, but essentially these are adaptive reactions. And again, when they are out of bounds, when they are highly dysregulated, they lose an adaptive function and they interfere with behavior rather than facilitate behavior. That being the case, let me just say that the idea that negative emotions are bad and positive emotions are good is not true. It is important for us to be able to learn how to cope with stress, and the ability to experience a negative emotion such as fear or shame is extremely adaptive. It's part of what tells us to move away from organisms. It's part of also moral development. So I just wanted to point out it's not so much positives are good and negative or bad as the difference between regulated and dysregulated. And when you're talking about dysregulation, you're talking about intensity of emotion, either extremely highly intense or very low in intensity. These are the ones that are problematic. Very low intensity in depression and loss, etc. Very high intensity, and essentially we are doing more than just communicating with each other by language. We're also communicating with each other non-verbally through these emotional communications, through face, gesture, tone of voice. These are always going on underneath the language, and these are more critical, actually, for our ability to make contact with other human beings. Someone is always looking to someone else to regulate their state, but cannot auto-regulate their state is problematic. And then in the most serious disorders, you have someone when they're under stress who can neither auto-regulate their own stress nor interactively regulate stress. And now we're looking at severe problems of chronic stress. Chronic stress essentially is stress dysregulation. But I want to point out again, the major way that human beings regulate these states, regulate our own internal homeostasis, regulate our body states, is by connecting with other human beings.